Welcome to Access to Art, brought to you by the Minneapolis Television Network. When we first did this show, I was 2 inches taller, 10 pounds lighter, and I had jet black hair. And alas for this, our 19th episode, hey, I'm pretty much the same. I'll tell you what, the heart still beats like a drunken drummer. And the excitement is that the Access to Art goes on. And tonight we're at Vesper College to take a look at an all-student semester-end show, which is also part of launch night for this spring's Art Whirl. I am with Dan Oyer, who is the Dean of the College, of Vesper College. And how about a quick introduction to how you got here and even why?
Great, thanks, Tom. Vesper College is a hybridized college of fine arts and architecture, and we're a graduate-only school, so our focus is to get people into the design industry through the use of design and doing hands-on making.
It seems to me that this would actually be a very smart thing to do nowadays as the world turns differently and we better appreciate where we want to live in the future. Is that part of the unspoken agenda?
Absolutely, although our sustainability here is a little different than what you might hear oftentimes these days. Our sustainability is focused on natural materials that transcend time, so extending life building cycles are very important for us. This building we're in is a perfect example of our vision. It's a 100-year-old building that's built with natural local stone and brick, and after 100 years of use, it's been brushed off a little bit, and now it's ready for its second 100 years. Tonight's show is a semester finale. Every student in the college is culminating their semester project with a work in the show tonight. There are 4 stages to that. One is Studio Pa, the first semester studio, which is cupping water. They have to contain water in their works.
Well, I got a log, carved into it with a chainsaw. I've never used a chainsaw before.
Was that safe?
Yes, it actually was. I started to like it kind of a lot, went overboard, put a hole in it, which you can probably see, but you know, cool. After that, I don't know, I got the idea of Gulliver's Travels with this one, and I just wanted to make it into a big giant, and then add dwarves to attack it.
This is automatic synesthesiatic. Synesthesia is when you kind of blend your senses together, like some people will hear colors or taste sound. The idea here is that the viewer, when pouring and catching the water through these 3 sculptures, can feel and experience the sensation of singing a 12-bar blues progression. When I hear the blues, I kind of picture these round objects in my head that the sound's kind of going through.
This is the Ceathathus, and Ceathathus was a primal ocean related to Pangea before the landmass is separated. And so what I was seeking to do is try to capture this primal essence of the ocean. It's a little bit nondescript and ambiguous deliberately. So part of it looks like shell structure, part of it could be a wave or a fin or even seabirds in flight.
Artists on the Verge is a fellowship and mentorship program that supports experimental new media artists working in Minnesota. In this first year of the program, which comes from interactive media arts organization Northern Lights and is funded by the Jerome Foundation, 6 commissions were awarded by artists on the Verge. There will be a joint exhibition of the grantees in late spring, early summer 2009. Access to Art Correspondent Ashley Siebels talked with several of this year's winners about their projects.
We represent a really wide variety of investigation, so I think it'll trigger people to think differently about what they can do with technology.
Artists on the Verge is a new grant program for new media work.
The Artists on the Verge program was spearheaded by a guy named Steve Dietz, who also founded the Northern Lights organization. It's an initiative for new and experimental media in Minneapolis. And the Artists on the Verge was a chance to support 2 fellowships and 4 mentorships for creating new works of public experimental art.
The whole project, the whole umbrella of the project is about weather manipulation and the kind of next generation technologies that will emerge to influence the way the natural world interacts with our world, or how humans affect natural resources is a very interesting topic for this group.
There are various aspects to this project. There is the lobby installation, which will include Mark Fox's piece, which is interactive, and will incorporate a dance component within that. We'll move into a sculpted space through audio and visuals and dance in the theater performance. And they will witness an experiential performance where sound and visuals are more of the means of communication.
New media is when an emerging technology gets integrated into an experience. So at one point in time, film was the new media. It's when technology enables new kinds of experiences. Right now, the new media that we're dealing with are interactive, where computers are cheap enough and widely available enough that you can manipulate them through all different kinds of inputs. So in this case, sonar sensors and infrared sensors are utilized, and that's what makes this a new media project.
I'm doing a piece called The Gate to the Enclosure. My proposal was to create a video cyclorama. A cyclorama is painting that exists in 360 degrees, so you stand in the middle of it, which is going to be a 4-screen video installation at the Wiseman Museum. The footage that will appear on the 4 screens is captured in real time with 4 cameras pointed outward in 360 degrees. One thing that I want to say about the piece is that the point to me isn't to create a seamless experience. I'm okay with it being a kind of a fragmented experience on the different screens, because there is something disorienting about it that I actually like. It's giving you everything, but somehow the fact that the images don't match up perfectly because of the optics, because of the curvature of the lenses, is totally okay with me.
My Artists on the Verge project is actually a series of performances to happen over many months, where I work collaboratively with shadow puppet artists to translate through new technologies the art of shadow puppetry into video projection onto buildings. There are different setups, but what I've put together for this particular project is a bicycle that has this extension on the back that allows me to carry more weight than I would with a typical bike. And it also works in this project as the platform or work surface. It has like more poles and things on it for mounting a camera, which is integral to what I do. So there'll be a camera that gets a live feed, and that we can have puppets and we can have drawing and we can layer that with video. So that's basically what people would see. It's just us roll up on this bike and maybe flip open a laptop and set up a camera, and then we'd go.
This project is called Eye to Eye. So basically it's recognizing or finding spaces that are accessible online through public posted webcams, and then seeing that as a stage to produce an art event. So the first one I did was at the College of St. Thomas webcam, And we went out on a snowy night when it was pure snow ground, and we walked out a pattern in the snow. That camera rebooted every 30 seconds, so it was a 30-second stop action art drawing in the snow. Then about 2 weeks ago, I went to a web camera that's in a florist shop on Grand Avenue, and the camera is set up to watch the flower cooler and watch people pick out their own flowers. So I went into that cooler and did drawings of the flowers for 2 hours, and that was captured, and I'm working on a short film of that right now. I like my projects to be fun, and I like to think that when people sort of understand the whole concept behind the project, that they realize that they too are artists and they can be creating this kind of work, and they can think of themselves as performers and take much more liberty in that area.
I think it's really great when nonprofit or a philanthropic organization is willing to fund experiments and fund exploration and play. What was new media or mixed media about it was the fact that that kind of experimentation was allowed.
Second semester studio, a studio abode. You can see some of the abodes behind us, and their aim is to create enclosure in an architectural form using natural materials.
So with my concept, I use extruded secluded. So the idea of taking a solid plane, extruding another plane out of it, which creates this void. So out of a solid comes a void, and then again extruding another plane. So the idea is that this project would keep extruding itself.
So this sets up a concept that you can see evolve to something that's habitable,
right,
engaging some of the concepts you're playing with here, including the big beam.
Right, including the beam.
The abode is entitled Sound Unseen, and the idea that it's kind of a sheltering gramophone, and it kind of taps back into the earth. It's mostly constructed of cedar and pine.
In a recent article on mnartist.org, writer Andy Sturdevant explored the world of shadow galleries, ad hoc arts exhibitions often located in personal living spaces. The Space, a temporary gallery run out of the one-bedroom apartment of the Minneapolis College of Art and Design student, is one such gallery. This spring, The Space hosted its first gallery opening. Accessed art correspondent Beth Peloff and John Akre visited the gallery and spoke with its host and curator inside of a shadow gallery.
Shadow gallery is basically anything that's in the shadow of this like commercial art space. Apartments and like found spaces. I think it's really lovely to have people experience like my space as something communal and not just like me living by myself. I don't really own much stuff, which is really convenient for this. I was able to fit everything I own in my tiny kitchen. My house in all its glory. You know, you're already paying the rent. You know people that are great artists, especially going to art school. People need shows for their resumes or just like want to show their work. The show is Natalie Mazeroll. She's sort of an intermedia type artist. It's sort of Midwestern sort of craft aesthetic. But there's also like this really beautiful sense of pop culture and like commercialization to her work. It's a lot of it is definitely about play and like this like really honest sense of whimsy. It seemed appropriate for this kind of space to have things that you could like interact with on a really human level. She also does performance work, and she's doing a performance tonight as Blitzkrieg Susie.
You know, I'm not comfortable with giving a last name at this moment.
She very much reminds me of the, like, Marilyn Monroe figure. Tragic, aloof, I guess. One of the precursors of celebrity. And people are really drawn to that. I know a lot of people haven't responded well to Susie because they expect Susie to talk about Natalie's work. They're very separate entities and possibly from a different, like, cosmos.
Yeah, I have no authority to talk about this work, actually.
It was interesting to have her come into the space and have assumed this new persona. It was a bit alarming. Even after working with her really closely for the last couple of days, I'm still sort of struggling to, like, quantify her practice. But I do know that I love it, and I really admire her work. I love to look at work as much as I love to make work. I really like to expose other people to the things that I'm looking at. You can take 2 days or 3 days to, you know, sort of transform the space and, like, host an opening, and it's really not that big of a deal. Yeah, it's still my home, but I think at this point, like, with the show up, it definitely feels a little bit more legitimate, like, as an art space, which is something that I was really hoping for, and I think that was successful.
The third semester is Studio Ground Latch. You can see an example of a ground latch right behind us here. And that's taking light from the inside to the outside, back and forth, to make a better connection with interior space to the earth.
It's called Infolded Version. What I did is I wanted to break the thermal barrier, so what I picked was a window. I've taken different angles of the sun at different seasons, so I got a 45-degree angle, a 30-degree angle, and a 24-degree angle, so the sun will come in at different times. Mm-hmm. And then I've placed a brass bar on the floor, and the quartz hits at the vernal and autumnal equinoxes of each year to represent when it comes into the window and when it leaves the window.
The title of my piece is Suspended Breath, and it's based off the idea that materials await moments of discovery and that anticipation is suspended breath. My mother was my client, and so she wanted a place where, if she was not able to be home, where clients could drop off the quilts. I wanted to try to echo some of the quilting patterns that she actually uses in her work. This is actually a locomotive window that my father had gotten from his workplace that they were going to put in the dumpster.
My lunar gleaner harvests moonbeams as caustic reflections. Parallel beams of light hit a curved surface and then bounce off of it, creating really interesting patterns. This is meant to hang over a skylight.
Oh, okay.
And then it can be lowered and raised, and depending on how close it is to the light source or far away, the reflection changes.
Extreme Noise is a volunteer-run cooperative record store in the Lynn Lake neighborhood of South Minneapolis. Started in 1994 by folks involved in the thriving local, extremely noisy punk scene. The store is the only one in the Twin Cities specializing in punk music. To celebrate their 15th anniversary, the store is sponsoring all-ages concerts at the Triple Rock Social Club. Accessed art correspondents Loris DePiro and Spencer Sin attended one of the many anniversary shows and interviewed some of the many people involved in starting and continuing this punk landmark.
Punk is as much of a part of the American cultural landscape as something like blues or bluegrass.
We've had hundreds and hundreds of volunteers over the years.
It is a form of expression.
People should know that this is a community store.
Lower middle class youth that it transcends like 3-4 generations now.
Real punk's always, you know, flying under the media radar, so you don't see it unless you go to a basement.
Former owner of another record store called Tatters. We got talking about record stores, and he said that it couldn't be done in this, you know, this market.
At the time, in the mid-90s, when we started this store, punk was kind of in a lull.
He had tried it, he lost like $1 million, and he said, okay, you get this thing together, you get your friends, you get the capital together, you can open a record store in my clothing store. To my surprise, a number of people said yeah, and then they invited their friends.
We got together and they all pitched in money and records.
I told him I'd call him in a month, and I called him in a month, and he just kept blowing off my phone calls, never called me back. Within a week or so, we had basically found our location.
Somebody located a space just down the street.
It was pretty awful, no heat and really bad.
A little hole in the wall.
We were signing a lease, made the commitment.
We were all up all night trying to get things started, and then the doors opened and people were there, and it was like, wow, it worked. You know, people are here.
The idea behind the store originally was definitely to support the music community and the punk scene and kind of give it a kind of a foundation. And I think we've done that in 15 years.
A lot of records that you don't find anywhere else, period.
We try and cover what we think most of our customers are looking for.
We're working really hard to find stuff that no other store is going to ever be able to get.
And a lot of that comes from local labels that trade.
International DIY distribution network that's been going since the 80s.
Anyone I know who is into punk and who's coming to town, I always take them to Extreme Noise.
Bands come through here on tour, people travel here from all over the 5-state area.
This is kind of a destination for out-of-town people that are coming into town for shows.
Because we're the only store that's going to have this kind of broad selection for punk.
A couple weeks ago we had some tourists from Japan come.
All my friends, our parents would take turns bringing us down to shows.
When I was a teenager shopping here, this is like the coolest place to come.
A few times we would take too long and my dad would walk in and pretend like he didn't know me and ask, like, you know, the tattooed guy where the Mariah Carey records were and stuff like that. That's when we knew it was time to go.
Why am I going insane? Why am I the one to blame?
The store started on April 4th, 1994, so this is going to be its 15-year anniversary.
We got a little money, so we're going to just like fly in a bunch of bands and have some really cool shows and have fun, rather than use it to like upgrade our phone system.
The anniversary is a big deal because it's a testament to the strength of the local punk rock scene.
I don't know if that says anything about us other than we're just stubborn.
Well, they're the only all-volunteer underground record store.
Record store in general is a hard business to run, and one that's as specific as that. The fact that it's still open and it's all volunteer run, which actually might be part of the reason it's still open.
So how did Extreme Noise make it 15 years?
I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea. I mean, it wasn't in the plan. We just kind of started, and here we are.
We're not the punk that it's supposed to be. We play without the anarchy. Just hope it sounded good.
We're doing a series of 5 shows at the Triple Rock Social Club in Minneapolis.
It's a reason to get people to come out to see music, to participate in the culture.
Disembodied, April 25th, today.
It was really exciting to have Disembodied. They got back together, and they were a band been involved in Extreme Noise.
Amoebics from the UK.
They're kind of this legendary UK, 80s kind of metal peace punk band.
Skit Kids from Sweden.
The best bands in the world right now for hardcore.
The Kids from Belgium.
They're like an early punk, like 78.
And Tragedy from Portland.
Top 10 probably in the world.
It's cool. It's good for a lot of the kids, man. They could go see these bands, that are older than their parents.
I would hope that, and since many of our customers are young people, they're going to be exposed to maybe different ideas, ways of thinking, ways of expression.
We're really lucky for a city our size to have as strong of a punk community as we do. Without Extreme Noise, there probably wouldn't be much of a punk scene.
It's sort of like you're supporting your own record habit by shopping here.
Congratulations to the record store, man. I'm glad they're still around.
So what I wanted to do this semester here, my last semester, was work with light and also work with illuminating a disregarded space or space that has never ever been lit before.
Okay.
Also, part of my project had incorporated an off-grid element, and so I wanted to work with lighting as my sort of off-grid medium. So what I wanted to do originally was do it with sort of, I noticed these sort of recesses in brick, and notice like how beautiful they can be, and they can kind of shrink down your scale and how you experience those small spaces. Unfortunately, we don't have brick in the gallery, so instead I decided to kind of chisel in here.
You had to damage the wall.
Exactly. So instead, I kind of punctured the skin of the wall to kind of see what's behind there, and it kind of turned out sort of intestinal. It's just sort of seeing what's actually behind there and kind of giving it a spotlight that it hasn't been seen before. What I would like to do is almost do guerrilla lighting, so you take those wonderful little alleys or disregarded space or even drainage sewers and backlight them or light them, and all of a sudden it's just space that you haven't noticed before, and just you have a new appreciation for it based on lighting.
So this is the Vivistructure.
Okay.
It's designed to be a piece of dynamic artwork. It's currently growing salt stalagmites and stalactites. So it's taken a fair bit of time for all of this to form, but the hope is that over time it'll evolve and develop further. I was working with mineral, animal, and vegetable for my master's thesis program, trying to develop ways that these things could be applied in architecture, like having a living dynamic kind of surface treatment.
And that wraps another episode of Access to Art, the 19th and final episode. You can watch us on Tuesday nights, channel 17 in Minneapolis at 8:30 p.m., and you can go to mtn.org and check the archives and see some of the great episodes we've had in the past. I do want to thank all arts organizations, both mainstream and upstream, and all of their board members and the officers and paid staff and the volunteers, and of course all of the artists themselves for all that they do for us. It's curious that we're in an economic bad time zone, and yet artists weather this all the time. They're used to it. It's the perfect time for us to turn to the artists to see what is indeed important. And if you have to cancel a trip to a theme park, well, you know, the artists have been patiently waiting all along to expose you to some alternatives that may not cost as much and might be differently and possibly more fulfilling. No more access to art? Well, that's too bad. We hope that the show created a bit more access for you to continue to go out and support every artist you know. Thanks to MTM and Pam, Beth, and John especially for putting up with, well, wait a second, maybe this is why we're getting canceled. Well, thanks for putting up with me. I do want to mention, you know, we could fade out while I say things like support Patrick's Cabaret and support Nautilus Music Theater and Cheap Theater and Minnesota Film Arts and the Kinetic Kitchen and the Walker and the Slam Team and the guy who snips discarded aluminum cans into little pinwheels and race cars. And you should support Rain Taxi, and you should support the Fringe Fest. And wait, I got something here. Look, a little Scrabble chewing gum. What does that mean? And support MTN. Support MTN. Again, treats you like a citizen and not a consumer. I'll see you soon.